Hello everyone, our topic this week was requested by Jesse Gartung. We'll be going over The Wailing Death from Neverwinter Nights 1. Spoilers for all Neverwinter-related properties. Bleda.
The Wailing Death is a magical disease, ongoing plot point, and inciting incident for the base campaign from Neverwinter Nights 1. Neverwinter Nights takes place in the Forgotten Realms fantasy setting, and the primary plotline centers around the city of Neverwinter, which has been swept by the plague of the Wailing Death. The disease was relatively fast-acting and very easy to distinguish. It rotted the flesh of its victims while burning them from the inside out, and was evidently incredibly contagious. Unless you have PC plot armor powers, obviously. But what made it scary, noteworthy, and plot-driving was the fact that it was virtually uncurable. Keep in mind that the Forgotten Realms setting is a world of monsters and sorceries. In most places, magic isn't the kind of thing that the common man would see every day, but in a city as influential and powerful as Neverwinter was at the time, calling together arcanely skilled mages and divinely powered priests to put a stop to a ravaging disease was a relatively trifling affair. And for those familiar with both the setting and game systems like D&D, which has a lot of Forgotten Realms-centered content designed for it, there are spells, rituals, artifacts, and the like designed specifically to counter, cure, and dispel both diseases and curses. Despite these facts, all attempts at curing the Wailing Death through magic or medieval science failed.
In desperation, the Lord of Neverwinter enacted 3 plans. First, he put a call out to any with courage or lust for coin to travel to Neverwinter and somehow help them put a stop to the plague. The most promising of these heroes were inducted into an academy for a crash course in a wide variety of training, from combat and magic to more mundane education, with plans to create a task force to try and handle the situation, whatever its cause may be. Second, magically sealed containers filled with samples of the Wailing Death were sent to great minds in the surrounding regions, with the hope that others would succeed in finding a cure where Neverwinter's finest had failed. Third, and much later, the city of Neverwinter was eventually fully quarantined as the Wailing Death spread further and wider with no signs of stopping, in the hopes that the people of the surrounding countryside would not be infected. The protagonist of Neverwinter Nights was one of the members of the Academy Task Force and ultimately the only one deployed. On the day of the player's graduation, it is revealed that one of the Forgotten Realms' greatest mages, Kelvin Blackstaff Arenson, had come up with a ritual that would create a cure, and had sent the materials and ritual instructions necessary for the cure to Neverwinter. Why he didn't just send the cure, rather than the pieces to assemble it, is unknown, but regardless, the ritual, among other things, required parts, such as feathers and organs, from 4 mystical creatures. As the player is being congratulated for graduating the Academy's process, an attack is launched on the Academy itself, which leads to each of said mystical creatures escaping into the city at large. What's more, of all the Academy's graduates and trainees, only the player survived the attack. Resultantly, you are tasked with tracking the escaped creatures down so that the cure may be created.
Over the course of the game, it is revealed that the Wailing Death is in fact a synthetic plague, a curse of ancient origin. Millennia before the events of the game, an ancient race of lizard-like creatures inhabited the region. At the time, it was a land of lush jungles and forests, perfect for a cold-blooded species. However, as the years passed, the land grew cold, and the lizards, led by their queen Morag, created a mystical object called the Source Stone, which they used to travel to a different dimension or plane, one more hospitable to their biological needs, and evidently somehow became mostly locked inside. Millennia upon millennia passed, and eventually Neverwinter was unknowingly established above the subterranean resting place of the Source Stone. Interestingly, it's hinted that this proximity to the Source Stone is one of the proximate causes for Neverwinter's comparatively hospitable climate, compared to the rest of the cold north in which Neverwinter resides. Eventually, a man named Maugrim would stumble upon the Source Stone, accidentally activating its mystical defenses, one of which was the Wailing Death. He himself was infected and would have died if not for the intervention of the Lizard Queen Morag, who cured him in exchange for his pledge to help her escape the prison of their little pocket dimension. Maugrim established a cult following Queen Morag and worked to find 4 objects of power that were required to open the Source Stone. Additionally, he began spreading the plague, both by his own hand and through the work of his cultists, as Queen Morag informed him that any soul who died of the Wailing Death within close enough proximity to the Source Stone, basically anywhere in Neverwinter, would empower her.
Either before or during the early days of the Wailing Death spread throughout Neverwinter, the cult infiltrated a nearby monastery city, its members insinuating themselves into the ranks of the monastery's priests, devotees of Helm, a god of protection, giving them the perfect cover to enter Neverwinter under the guise of trying to lend aid. In actuality, virtually all of the Helmites who came to Neverwinter during the plague were cultists in disguise, including their leader, who became a trusted ally to the Lord of the City. The cultists secretly spread the disease further and faster while pretending to try and halt its progress. It was these cultists who attacked the Academy at the beginning of the game and scattered the mystical creatures in an attempt to stop the cure from ever coming to light. Despite their best efforts, though, the cultists could not stop the player from collecting the needed creature samples and returning to Neverwinter's Lord to perform the ritual that would create the cure. However, the Helmite leader, again also a cultist, was present for the ritual and immediately absconded with the cure once the ritual was completed, revealing himself and the cult in the process before retreating back to the Monastery City, now a major base of operations for the cult. The player tracked him down, obtained the cure, and brought him back to Neverwinter for judgment, where he was executed for his crimes.
However, despite the false Helmites being exposed as cultists and the cure brought to Neverwinter, the source of the Wailing Death, the full extent of the cultists' plans, and even the existence of the Lizard Queen Morag were at this point unknown. The protagonist, now dubbed the Hero of Neverwinter, set out, with the aid of, by this point, trusted members of Neverwinter's council, in search of the source of the plague. Over the course of the game, the player would uncover the nature of the plague, route an invasion of a very weakened Neverwinter by enemy nations, which was staged by the cultists, and track down the very same objects of power that the cult leader, Malgrim, was looking for to release the Lizard Queen. The player found most of them first, but despite that, Malgrim was able to use the single artifact he acquired, combined with all of the extra power Queen Morag had acquired thanks to those slain by the Wailing Death, to open the Source Stone. The player killed Malgrim, then entered the Source Stone, butchering their way through Queen Morag's guards before eventually slaying the Queen herself and escaping the Source Stone's dimension as it collapsed in on itself, stopping the threat of the Queen and her Wailing Death at its source. Neverwinter was devastated by these series of disasters, and indeed would remain dangerously weak for a decade or so to come, and later had the misfortune of being caught in the path of an exploding volcano, decimating the city once more. But despite all of that, Neverwinter's people keep coming back again, and despite even the mar of the Wailing Death, Neverwinter is well on its way to reclaiming its title as the shining jewel of the North.
And that's basically the Wailing Death. Cursed Disease from Neverwinter Nights 1. We hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please leave us a like and share it with someone you know might like it. If you have ideas for videos you'd like to see in the future, do like Jesse Gartung and let us know in the comments down below. If you'd like to see more lore videos, go ahead and hit that subscribe button, and if you'd like to see our Let's Plays, follow the link in the description and subscribe to our Let's Play channel.
In the meantime, this has been True Masters and Morons, signing off.